Hello everyone. Today we shall look into the topic the key concepts of cultural studies. Made easy just for you. In our previous video, I have given you the basic foundation of cultural studies, origin and their principles, and lay a foundation strong on cultural studies by looking into that video. Now we shall look into the 8 important key concepts of cultural studies. They are representation, materialism, non-reductionism, articulation, power, popular culture, text and readers, subjectivity and identity. Now we shall look into all these 8 important concepts one by one. The first one is representation. Cultural studies, it emphasizes focus on representation, which refers to how the world is socially constructed. We can same person say that at the birth stage, not everything is being assigned. Okay, everything is being socially constructed. You will get to know things only after certain practices. That is why it is said that it is being socially constructed and it would represent us in a meaningful way. The major stress of cultural studies is on the study of culture as the practice of representation. Why it is? For this, we need to explore the different meaning generated by the text and the modes by which each meaning is produced in different contexts. For example, you would have seen certain words where that would represent it in a particular context, it would be a verb. In another context, it would be an adjective. So we should note all those important context and you have to understand the meaning. So moreover, representation of culture and their meaning have a material aspect. So the concept of representation has an important place in the study of culture. You have to agree because representation is that which connects the meaning and language to the culture. Which means in one particular culture, this would be a meaning for a certain object. Whereas in another culture, you would have another meaning. So it goes on. It is an important element of the process through which meaning is produced and exchanged between the members of culture. Okay, because it would involve language, sign and images which stand for representing things. Okay, when you have to represent things, how will you represent? You have to represent it by the way of language, you have to represent it by sign or you have to represent it by certain images. So what basically representation is? It is the creation of meaning of concepts. What is it? It will be creating concepts in our minds through language. For example, we shall take a beverage advertisement. We shall take any cool drink advertisement. What it would represent? It would represent the aspect of party. Okay, if a beverage advertisement is shown, that may represent a party. Or if your motorcycle advertisement is shown, then it would represent the means of transport. In that way, each object has certain representation in their particular way. Okay. Next is materialism. Cultural studies is mostly concerned with modern industrialized economies as well as with the media culture because they are organized on a capitalist lines. How they are organized on a capitalist line? Because these representations are produced by profit motivated corporations. Okay, there are several organizations which their full focus will be on profit. It is in this context that cultural studies have developed a form of cultural materialism. It is concerned with understanding how and why specific meanings are inscribed at the time of production. So therefore, in addition to keeping the focus on practices, cultural studies tries to connect these political economy. As a result, what happens when it is being connected to political economy is cultural studies is concerned with the one who owns as well as controls the cultural production. What is it is? One who owns the cultural production and one who controls the cultural production. There is a connection between them. Next one is non-reductionism. A central characteristic of cultural studies is its non-reductionism. In this, Each culture is viewed as having its own particular meaning, rules and practices which cannot be reduced to or explained in some other category. I told you that each particular category will have their own meaning, their own rules and their own practices. And the cultural studies has specifically fought against the economic reductionism and the process of political economy do not determine, the political economy will not determine the meaning of text in the cultural studies. That is totally different because political economy, social relationship and culture are to be understood on their own specific logic, and their own methods of development. It should not be compared with all those meanings in the text. So each one of these is articulated and they belong in a context specific manner. So non-reductionism of cultural studies, it emphasizes on class, gender, sexuality, race, nation as well as ethnicity because they have their own specifics and they cannot be reduced to political economy or they cannot be reduced to each other category itself. That is why it is known as non-reductionism. Next one is articulation. Articulation, what it does is it links the cultural or social phenomena. The concept of articulation has been deployed by cultural studies for theorizing the relationship among various concepts of social formation. So, articulation refers to putting together. In this way, representation of a gender can be put together with representation of race or nation, so that we can refer to nation as being female. Understand this way. You call India as Bharata Mata. So what you put together, you bring in gender and nation. So that is what it is known as putting together. When you articulate it in a cultural studies way, then it would link the cultural or social phenomena. So articulation is the framework of connection which can create an unity of two or more different elements under certain conditions. So in cultural studies, articulation is a method used to analyze culture and it builds up new framework for interpretation. And it can keep on changing. It can be continually fashioned and refashioned. Next concept is power. Power is the capacity of imposing one's willingness on others. It is a common argument that media has too much power. There is a startling agreement among cultural studies writers that power is seen as pervading at every level of social relationship. So, power is a coercive force that subordinates one group of people to another. As well as power can also act as a glue that holds the social groups together. So, in this sense, power is constraining as well as enabling. So, cultural studies is specifically concerned with subordinated groups, mainly class and then race, gender, age group, nations and many. For example, keep it this way. Minorities of all kinds, they generally presume that their way of life and views are treated by media in a positively hostile manner. Next one is popular culture. Subordination takes place due to coercion and consent. So what is coercion? When you force someone to do something, then it is known as coercion. What is consent? When you agree on doing something, then it is known as consent. So cultural studies understands popular culture in this way, whether the consent is obtained or lost. So in order to understand the interplay of power and consent, two related concepts of ideology and hegemony are often deployed in the text of cultural studies. So ideology, it commonly refers to the maps of historically specific meaning. For example, gender representation in advertisements. You will see, right? In advertisements, you have seen many gender representations where it may be they can represent women as housewives or they can represent women as sexy bodies. So what it does is it reduces those categories. Such portrayal denies them their rightful position as human beings and citizens of the society. So This process of making, maintaining and reproducing the meaning and practices is referred to as hegemony. Okay, all those maintain process, reproduction process is known as hegemony. It refers to a situation where powerful groups, they show their authority and leadership over subordinate groups by gaining consent. The next concept is text and reader. Text here generally describes a written word and also the range of cultural objects like books, televisions, CDs, films, etc. So it also includes generating meaning by sounds, images, objects like clothes and activities like dance, sport. So all these images, sounds, practices and objects are system of sign and signify the same way as of language. So they all can be commonly referred to as text. All sort of text including television and film are said to be read. So, in a broader sense, what I say is, it refers to the understanding of audience. The meaning which critics find in cultural text are not the same as produced by the readers or active audience. So, all the readers do not necessarily, they have to share the same meaning with each other. Because critics also come under the breed of readers. Okay, so if critics itself is a reader, then of course the meaning of every perspective of the reader would differ. These readers give life to words and images, and the ways in which the text work can be easily examined, but the meaning audience obtained from the textual analysis cannot be read off. Okay. So, meaning is produced by the interplay of text and reader. So, the role of text is also important and the role of reader is also important. As a result, the moment of consumption is also the moment of meaningful production. This is what they convey. Next concept is subjectivity and identity. Identity is the sense of self. It is commonly argued that media plays a significant role in this process. One of the process by which we are formed as persons is marked by the moment of consumption. For example, when you look into the history, during the 1990s, main area of concern in cultural studies were what is to be a person. Therefore, we can say that cultural studies looks into how we come to be the kind of people we are, how we are produced as subjects, and how we identify with descriptions of ourselves as male or female, black or white. Okay, you will have certain identities for certain things. If you are a female, then you have to have these qualities. If you are a male, then you have to be with these qualities. So everything has a subjective view, and that would create an identity in the society. So, identities are made rather than being found. For instance, in relation to media, an individual may define himself as a heavy metal fan or a fan of rock music. Okay, so this name fan has two different things according to the context. Okay, so everything is being socially constructed and it is subjective in nature.